At the dawn of time, when all land on Earth that had existed as one enormous mass slowly began to break up, this period marked the rise of one of nature's most amazing creations of all time. Automatons.
Well, no. In fact, automatons are slightly less ancient than dinosaurs, although some of the earlier accounts of automata are to be found in mythology. So let me get this straight. In Greek mythology, first there was chaos. Then Gaia and Uranus gave birth to the Titans, who were later overthrown by a race of younger gods, the Olympians. Amongst them, smithing god Hephaestus, who not only forged weapons, but also made advances in robotics by building 2 mechanical female statues of pure gold. But thinking about how that might correlate the Mesozoic era kind of makes my brain hurt, so I'm gonna stop. Better stick to science, eh? Because that is what early mechanics were about. They were tools for demonstrating basic scientific principles. Apart from that, all the science stuff I mean, from the very beginning of mechanics, automata have always had massive success as toys. This success rapidly increases with the invention of clockwork in the late Middle Ages. And those who can afford them get to be entertained by musical clocks and boxes, orchestrions, mechanical animals and androids. Centuries, mechanical toys get cheaper and cheaper and more available to the masses, opening a whole new branch of entertainment machines such as pinball. But producing also toys for children, starting in the mid-19th century with the famous tin toys, up to probably the zenith of all robotic toy production, the Furby. No, Back to the more dignified history of automatons, let's talk about the interesting chapters. From the very beginning, the history of automata came with an idea that in the mid-17th century, French philosopher, mathematician and physicist René Descartes didn't dare make public, which is why his treatise De Homine was only published posthumously in 1662. Descartes states that while humans and animals are both created by God, the difference between both of them is that only the human has an immortal soul, whereas animals really are just like very complicated machines, that in fact the human body too works like a machine, that it has material properties, hence the thought that it is theoretically possible to rebuild it. Manufacturers of androids naturally mostly originated from families of clockmakers, as in the case for the Swiss Pierre-Jacques Droz, the German Peter Kinzing, clockmaker to Marie Antoinette, and 1 century later, the French clockmaker and magician Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, who was the first to incorporate automatons into illusions. Before artificial humans became quite a popular motif in sci-fi movies, these heydays of automatons with their androids also found their echo in literature. E.T.A. Hoffmann's The Sandman sees student Nathaniel falling in love with the beautiful Olympia, unfortunately later revealed to be an android. And there we have it. Nathaniel's vision might be manipulated by an enchanted pocket telescope, but the motive is there. How can automatons have no soul and yet touch ours? We find a possible answer in philosophy by going even further back than Descartes to Aristotle and his treatise De Anima. Aristotle differentiates different kinds of souls, or rather different qualities of a soul, such as the ability to nourish themselves, to reproduce others of the same kind, perception, memory, imagination, and one of them is self-motion. And there it is. Of course we know, and people knew back then, that the movement of an automaton isn't linked to the existence of a soul, but rather to a mechanism that has to be set off as well. But if we allow ourselves for a moment to not be so brainy and to resort to a very basic, instinctive thought, it moves, it is alive. Movement, life, soul. Animated objects touch us, maybe also partly due to their clumsy movements because of their childlike characteristics. And if you never looked at a toy thinking, "Oh, so cute!" If you can't recall that feeling, then you're way too adult and too aware of all things. So take a moment and think back to your childhood.
It's so easy to pretend that I'm your mother and you are my best friend. I won't dream about you if you don't dream of me. All the games we play are more than you could ever know. 1 in a million, I'm not mad at you, you're never mad at me. be happy, don't be sad, don't be angry, but do be very glad that you're unaware of the fact you exist.
Hang on. This is all way too cute, because next to all the animated cuteness, mankind seems to have a particular interest in all the animated creepiness. Why are especially humanoid automatons so creepy? Attempt an answer. They have a humanoid face, which we instinctively would try to read and fail. Interaction between humans is difficult. We need our intelligence, we need interpretation, we need our senses to tell us how to interact, to know whether the person opposite of us is good or evil, or in a good mood or bad mood. Androids look human, but they're impassive, so the probably most important human skill in society, to read people, fails. Even when they're sculptured to smile, or maybe that's even worse, that everlasting unperturbed smile, which seems soulless. Looking at an indecipherable face, we sense danger, which then translates into this uncertain sense of creepiness. Like in The Sandman, Nathaniel's friend describes. It seems as if she acts like a living being, and yet has some strange peculiarity of her own. Today, automatons are still fascinating, but despite stunning technical advances in robotics and near-human robots, we don't exactly consider them as miracles anymore. We're much too used to, in everyday life, using and actually depending on machines that we don't really understand. And we're also used to toys having a life of their own and jumping around and beeping and... Mechanical toys still appeal to us because they trigger nostalgic feelings, but a real sense of excitement and wonder is maybe more difficult to achieve today. I discovered the world of automata in 1991 when I visited the Cabaret Mechanical Theatre in London for the first time. This, for me, magical place had started life as a slightly odd craft shop in Cornwall in 1979. The owner, Sue Jackson, sold Peter Markey's wooden toys alongside knitwear and ceramics. With the arrival of Paul Spooner and his mechanical pieces, however, it soon became clear that people would pay to bring automata to life, an exhibition which expanded and expanded until the Cabaret Mechanical Theatre opened in its new premises in Covent Garden, London in 1985, which is where I found it a few years later. Now, Covent Garden, although very touristy, quickly became my favourite place in London, but I think most of the credit for that goes to the Cabaret Mechanical Theatre. So, since Cabaret Mechanical Theatre had to leave the premises in 2000, I'm not really sure anymore where Covent Garden and I stand today. Mechanical pieces like the work of Paul Spooner, though, are still a revelation, because they work on several levels, as I was able to analyse with Sarah Alexander, managing director of Cabaret Mechanical Theatre. Spooner adds humour to the whole thing, a lot of quirky humour. But when you say the first reaction is to laugh, that is exactly the thing that differentiates the mechanical theatre, or this Cabaret Mechanical Theatre from other mechanical theatres.
Yeah.
Right, because those pieces, the Paul Spooner pieces, started as humorous pieces.
Yes, I mean, Paul says it's like your T-shirt. He says that you know, they are just jokes for people with short attention spans. So yeah, his sketchbook is full of lots of jokes and pieces that will never be made, but that's the starting point.
So they're animated jokes.
They're animated jokes, yeah.
What is he drawing?
A sausage. if you look at the joke, because he's Lord of the Mummy wrappings, he had to deal with preserving the remains of the dead Egyptians. So what he's designing, as Paul says, is a surprisingly modern looking solution, which is a sausage.
Yikes!
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are just absurd, like the man in the bath.
Yes,
eating
exactly.
spaghetti. There is
Yeah.
not much background.
Not
there,
really.
Or is
No,
it?
not really. I mean, I think the background to that one is that it's a messy business and I would never order spaghetti in a restaurant and you need to practice eating it. And so it's one logical step to practice at home
In the bathtub.
in your kitchen, but the next logical step is to...
If you're really bad,
if you're really bad, you would do
it.
it in the bath, because there's no way that you won't be able to clear up the mess. So, but I mean, it's quite horrible, really. The thought of really sitting in the bath of spaghetti. But children want to try it.
But the animated jokes of Cabaret Mechanical Theatre work on a different level as well. The mechanic is still fascinating. And today, in a more and more educated world, more and more people actually dare to ask and try to understand how these machines actually work instead of merely admiring them. And people who dedicate their lives to automatons have also left the sphere of magicians and miracle workers and are now working against the neglect of technical skills. Like the company Fire the Inventor, which runs practical automata workshops for schools, science centers, museums and special events. For example, this food automata workshop for the staff of the Science Museum in Minnesota, helping people to learn about basic mechanisms and linkages as well as to discover their creativity. Which is the best idea in the world, as I remember never leaving Cabaret Mechanical Theatre back in Covent Garden without very serious plans to manufacture my own automaton. Which sadly is one of the things in my life that I haven't achieved yet. Hi, I strongly urge you to watch my background video for this because it was quite a piece of work and I have a lot of people to thank for, most importantly those. But if you want to know why I have to thank those people and what for and where were the problems and the joys of this video, go to this video, just click here